Welcome to the Live Unrestricted podcast, a show where you'll learn how to heal your relationship with food and your body so that you can focus your time and energy on more important things like your personal growth. I'm your host, Sabrina Magna, food freedom coach, and my mission is to help make your life happier and healthier without stress, overwhelm, or guilt about food. If you love the show, please do go out and share it. And if you're looking for support with your relationship with food, details about my programs are in the show notes. Thanks for spending time with me today. Now let's jump in. Welcome back to part 2 of our interview with Gabby Jockers. Now, if you haven't watched part 1, then you're going to want to make sure to go back and watch part 1 because we had such an amazing conversation. Gabby is a mindful boudoir photographer, and she integrates mindfulness, intuitive eating, body image work into her photography so that the women that she works with feel very confident and comfortable and know how to reclaim their power in something that is very vulnerable when you are out semi-naked in front of a photographer. Already, if you struggle with your body image, then that can be a very vulnerable state. And so if you're someone who dreads being in pictures, you're constantly thinking negative thoughts about your body all day long, and you want to embody more confidence and self-love so that you can show up as the most authentic version of yourself without worrying what people are thinking, then this episode is going to be for you. So in part 2 of our conversation, we are focusing a little bit more on her shoot process, on the 3 crucial steps of Gabby's shoot process to help her clients reclaim their power and confidence. The 3 main reasons why women decide to do a boudoir shoot. We talk about what a body image reset is and how to know if you might need one. Now, this part I really loved, and I had a very big aha moment of my own. And so you're definitely going to want to pay attention to that. We talk about how people pleasing is connected to nutrition, diet, and confidence, how to instantly become more confident with this one trick, the 4 steps to confidently posing for your pictures, and so much more. Gabby has such a unique perspective on photography. And if you listen to part 1, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. So let's jump into part 2 of our conversation with Gabby Jockers. My other question that I was very curious about is those limiting beliefs that hold people back from feeling confident and empowered. Do you see that happening in all body shapes and sizes, or does that happen more like, because I think that there's this really common misconception that body image issues only happen in larger sizes. And I talk about thin privilege time and time again. And I'm so cognizant that like there is such a weight stigma and that people in larger bodies do get discriminated against. But I, for one, have struggled with disordered eating. I've been underweight, and I hated my body more when I was at that size than I am now. And again, this comes back to the thoughts that we have about our bodies. So from what you've seen, does it kind of range all over the spectrum?
100%. I also have kind of picked up on this kind of societal idea that it's only people in bigger bodies or in fat bodies that struggle with this kind of stuff. And one thing that I've really, really noticed as a boudoir photographer is it's people of all sizes. Mm-hmm. And if anything, people who, I think this is something that we all carry within us in the society that we live in, you know, as an American living in America. Fat phobia is something that every one of us who has not specifically worked, you know, just like racism and sexism and stuff like that. Fat phobia is one of these universal kind of things that have just been pushed into us and trained into us.
It's like normalized.
So it's normal. Yes, that's a good word. It's something that has just been normalized. And I actually think that people who are fat have had to confront their own thoughts about this, about fat phobia, their own internalized fat phobia, more than people who are a smaller size. So I feel like I see it more in people who are smaller sized, and more body dysmorphia in people who are smaller sized than people who are bigger sized.
Interesting.
But this is a very non-scientific, just purely
from experience.
But for sure, everybody of all sizes, like, has that societal message of fat phobia placed into us. Mm-hmm. And unless we choose to confront it and to unravel it on our own selves, it's going to continue ruling us.
I so agree with this. I was talking to one of my clients this week and we were talking about body image. And one thing I realized as we dug deeper is I realized I was like, when you see other people out in the world in a larger body, I want you to be brutally honest with me and with yourself. What thoughts do you have about those people? And what she noticed was that she was having critical thoughts about other people in larger bodies. And what we really had to deconstruct was, if you keep having fat phobic thoughts, critical thoughts about people who are in the same bodies as you, who in larger bodies, who might not fit society standards, how can you possibly ever accept yourself if you can't accept others? And we have to do that work. And sometimes it's actually easier to do it with other people because we hold less of those high standards or that perfectionism. We have actually more compassion for other people than we can have for ourselves. So imagine how hard it is to start having compassion for yourself if you're not even able to have it for other people first. And so I so agree. I think it's really important to confront, and I had to do that. Like I'm super honest with my clients all the time.
Probably still doing it, right?
Yeah. And I'm so honest with my clients about my past. And, I used to hate my body. And like I said, I was underweight. And of course I was conditioned to have fat phobia and weight stigma. And for me, it was really confronting my own demons and starting to notice what thoughts would come up when I was at the gym or when I was at the restaurant or when I would see other people. And it was as I really worked through what was coming up for me and redirected my thoughts towards a more compassionate thought, to a more critical, like critically thinking thought of, just because that person is in a larger body, it does not mean they are unhealthy. It does not mean that they are lazy. It does not mean that they're unmotivated, because those are the things that I had been conditioned to believe by society. And when I actually started deconstructing that, I was able to start applying that to myself and have more compassion to myself.
Yeah. And I think that what you just described is such a vital practice that just that alone can have an enormous impact on the way people see themselves and the world. The practice, and this is another place where mindfulness comes in, because I can say from my perspective, after practicing mindfulness for many years, what I saw change was the space between the thought, the recognition of the thought, and the rewriting of the thought. So when I was very new at this, because I want to mention this because a lot of people who are not there yet may feel discouraged by thinking, well, I don't really realize I think these things in the moment. And I just want to say that that's totally fine, because I know that when I first started this practice, I might not realize I said something fat phobic, or I said something critical or derogatory about myself or others until like a week later, or 2 weeks later. It might just pop
the time delay is so much longer at the beginning.
Yes, the time delay is real. And that doesn't mean it doesn't work for you to still address, confront, and rewrite that belief, or rewrite that thought, or reframe how you want to see the situation. So while in the beginning, it may have taken me like hours, days, weeks, it may have taken me a while to realize, ooh, I really said that. Or, ooh, I really heard somebody else say that and I didn't say anything when I heard that statement being, whatever critical or whatever thought, whatever it was. I would notice it later, and then I would think, is that really how I want to be? Like, is that how I want to present myself to the world? Is that how I want to present myself to myself? Does that make me feel good that I said that thing? No. And instead of shaming and saying, oh, I'm a terrible person, because that is another big trap that we can get stuck in, of thinking, you're going to say bad shit. You're going to fuck up. I hope that's okay. You can edit that out if you don't do curse words on this podcast. But these things are there. But that doesn't mean you're a bad person. Recognize it, see what's happening, and choose how you want to step forward without it meaning something about who you are. In fact, your action is what makes it mean something about who you are. What you choose to do after you recognize that thought, even if it's like a year later and you're like, oh my God, I really said that at Christmas last year to like my little cousin and I made fun because she's a little big, like whatever it was.
Yeah.
Even if it's a year later, if you recognize that and you say, actually, that thought or that statement does not help me and it does not help anyone else. So let me rewrite it now. That's what really matters.
Yeah. Oh my God. And I have, again, so many things to say here. Number one is that it really does come down to, and I always say this because I help my clients like really recognize what their thoughts are and not feeling bad about the thoughts that you're having, because a lot of the thoughts that we have are subconscious. We did not come up with them. We did not choose them. We literally are taking all of this information that we took growing up, and then thoughts are getting formed out of that. And the analogy I always use is like your brain is literally like a fresh garden. And when you were young, people planted seeds in that. And maybe people planted seeds of fat phobia or racism or sexism or whatever it was. And of course, what grew out of that are the thoughts, the trees that are what you're feeling now. And so you can't feel bad about the thoughts that you've been conditioned to have. Those are happening on autopilot. But what you can do is recognize them and then consciously choose, which is not easy. I'm sure that you know through mindfulness, it's not easy, but consciously choose to have a different thought. And what you said before, I just got so excited because I never thought of it that way when you were talking about mindfulness and we were talking about like that time delay of looking back. Oh my God, I said that a week ago or 2 weeks ago or a month ago. I really think that what mindfulness does and awareness of your thoughts does is that it shortens that time delay every single time, so that eventually you get to a point where that thought is going to come up and right away you're going to be able to rewrite your story. And I never really thought of that because I think a lot of people find it so hard at first. They're like, God, I don't even know what I'm thinking. And so just give yourself grace that, give yourself grace that at first it's not going to be an automatic thing where you're going to be able to like see and hear your thoughts right away and then change them. But when you're able to reflect on it, okay, what were some of the thoughts that I had today? What were some of the thoughts that I had this week? And how do I feel about those thoughts? And do I want to keep thinking of those thoughts? Then it's going to become a practice and you're going to get better at it.
You get better at it. At a certain point, you're going to catch them before it comes out of your mouth. And you're going to rewrite it in the moment and imagine how great you'll feel then.
That's so funny you say that because I went through, I like challenged myself a couple of months ago. I wanted to see how much I complained. So what I did is I set an intention for the week and I said, I'm not going to complain. And when I do, and I say it out loud, I'm going to catch myself and reframe right away. And so there'd be times where I'd be like hanging out with friends and I'd hear a complaint come out of my mouth and I'd be like, nope. Yes, it's raining today, but, and then I would say something positive and they thought it was so weird. But again, like when you get used to catching yourself in the moment, then eventually it's going to happen all internally. And eventually your thought process is completely going to change.
This is the new Western science around neuroplasticity and whatnot is reflected by ancient practices like in yoga that have been practiced for thousands of years. And it's so fun. It's so fun to see right now how like Western medical science is like catching up with ancient practices that have been in use by humans for millennia. And that is exactly what you're talking about. The idea of neuroplasticity, that the brain is not a fixed path. It's not like a city where the streets are laid down and you're just forced to drive down the same streets because, it would be nice if, I used to live in Boston. It would be nice if Boston was a grid city. It is not. It is a chaotic, crazy mess there. But there's nothing that can be done about that. But the brain is not the same way. The brain can change. You can absolutely rewire your brain and rewire your thoughts. You have the ability to take this subconscious 90% of your mental function, bring it into the conscious world to change on that level. So it's so great. And it's one of these things that in the beginning, like you said, it is very hard. honestly, even like years in, it can still feel very hard.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard to, it's not a situation where there's a whole lot of instant gratification. It's a cumulative process.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really just a matter of choosing that intention, right? Choosing to commit to yourself, choosing to take on this journey, because the purpose is to make you feel more at peace with yourself, with your body, with the world, and show up better for yourself, for your body, for your family, for your community, for your career. Commit to yourself, knowing that you're probably not going to truly see the differences for months or years or decades down the road, but that it is worthy of your effort.
Yeah. And I think that's so important in terms of instant gratification. This is something I talk a lot because especially my audience are very driven towards instant gratification, especially when you're used to dieting and you want quick weight loss and you want quick results. And what I do with my clients is because, especially, you know, from the intuitive eating journey, it's not this linear journey where you're going to see external results. You have to look at how you feel and how you're thinking and how you're growing and how you're evolving. And I call it like manufactured instant gratification and learning how to find wins in these small little things. So for example, if you're someone who's noticing all these negative thoughts come up and you see those negative thoughts as failures, instead, I want you to look at that as like, wow, that's awesome. I'm noticing a negative thought right now, which is a huge win because the first step to change is awareness. And so I'm noticing this negative thought, which means I'm starting to know myself better. And then the next thing I can do is start working towards changing it. And so if you're able to start looking at these small things as like a golden ticket, like a little win here and there, then it might not feel like you're moving super quickly, but you're getting that instant gratification from I'm doing something in the right direction.
Absolutely.
Oh okay,
I can tell people who work with you must be getting the real good shit because like, wow, she really is making this so easy for people.
Okay, I want to talk about something that you do with your clients, which is, I know that you mentioned that you start each photography shoot with guided meditation. And I'm super interested in knowing what that kind of looks like for you and your clients and why is that helpful?
Yeah. So a meditation is one of the practices, one of the mindfulness practices I pull into my client experience to help them get out of their heads and into their body. There's a couple other things that kind of flesh out the picture that I'll touch on very quickly. Intention setting being one of them. And before people even come into my studio, I've asked them, why are you doing this? What's your intention? You know, different ways of phrasing the same thing. At least like 4 times before they've even come to my studio, because like the body image stuff, it's peeling back the layers. You know, you kind of have an external reason and then you get a little every time you think about it, you might get a little bit deeper. So first it starts with their intention for the session. Because I'm here not to achieve a certain photograph or make them feel a certain way. I'm here to help them accomplish what they want. So it's not about me, it's about them. So we start with their intention, which I hold and remind them of throughout the session and the viewing and whatnot.
Can I ask you something?
Go ahead.
What are some of the most common intentions you see from people coming into these shoots?
There's a few. Probably some of the big buckets are, one is like reclaiming my power. This is reclaiming my body or reclaiming my sexuality. This is more common in people who have left abusive relationships. So that's kind of one general bucket. One is creating my own internal guidepost or finding my voice, or what's a good way of saying this? Maybe I can't simplify it that much, but basically society tells me I am too this, too that. I'm too fat. I'm too not toned. I'm too short. I'm too tall. I'm too whatever. And I just want to make an effort and make a big gesture to myself of celebrating and accepting myself so that I can learn to tune those messages out.
Okay.
I kind of consider that like an internal guidepost sort of situation. And then another one, big one that I see is a body image reset. That's kind of how I come to think about it. And that's very common in women who are usually about older than 30 years old. Many of them have had kids, and they kind of look back at their pictures from when they were like 21, and they're like, wow, I can't believe I thought my body was such a problem when I was 21, because now, you know, post aging, post kids, post life, post illness, post stress, my body is way different. And I kind of wish I had appreciated it more back then, but I also don't want to be just stuck comparing. That's another one of those body image, you know, major blocks is the comparison. I don't want to be stuck comparing myself to my old body that I'm never going to have again. That's firmly in the past.
Yeah.
I want a body image reset to update that mental image of myself in my head to my current body so that I can treat my current body with the love and respect it deserves.
That is something I've literally never thought about, and I'm lighting up right now because I mean, I know that every single person who's listening to this episode, this is like my community through and through. Like, I look back on pictures and I hated my body back then, and we compare to this. And the problem that happens is we start hating our bodies and we start dieting. And when we start dieting, we usually start taking less and less pictures. And so the point of references are stuck when you were in your 20s at this body that realistically, I mean, our bodies are meant to change, and our bodies go through a lot. They go through birth, they go through adulthood, like they go through so much. And when we are constantly comparing it to these pictures that we took years and years ago, of course we're breeding the ground for dissatisfaction and comparison. And so I've never even thought about, like, how about we set a new point of reference to your body here and now? And oh, that's awesome. I never even thought of that.
Yeah, it is. When I kind of, you know, reflected back on my clients and what they shared with me, and I realized that, I was like, that is powerful.
Yeah.
That is because there are only two things that are inevitable in the human experience. And it's not death and taxes. It is death and our bodies changing. Because we know now, you know, not to get political or anything, but we know there are a lot of people who don't pay taxes.
Yeah.
Like, that's just a fact. We know this, you know, but death and our bodies changing, that is there's no getting around those two things. No. That is something that every single human being will experience.
Yeah. And what I always tell my clients is, like, there comes a point in our lives that we accept that bodies are going to change. So from like the point that we're born until like maybe 18 to 20s, it's normal for bodies to change. And then for some reason, we think that when we get to our 20s until we're about 60, 65,
they're going to be the same.
That's where it's fixed. And then as of like 60 to 65 is when we start getting more elderly. Some people shrink, like our bodies, we start sagging. And it's only at that point that we're like, okay, it's normal for your body to start changing again. And then like that whole majority of your life, which is where you have jobs and kids and responsibilities, that part though, you're supposed to stay stagnant. Like, it's crazy.
It doesn't make sense because think about it in like one simple example. Let's say you went to college. College is usually made up of walking in between a ton of classes. You're doing activities with your friends. You might be involved in a sport or something like that. Even if you're not like me, before I moved to Colorado, I was like the least athletic person you can think of. Even if you're more like me, you still have to walk in between classes, you know, and some campuses are big and you spend a lot of time walking. And then let's say you graduate and you work your first office job. You went from like a interval type activity level where it has a mix of sedentary and active and cardio and all that kind of good stuff. You're mixing it up to basically sedentary all day.
Yeah.
And that sedentariness, that, you know, sitting in front of a computer, whatever, most people get very tired from it. So by the time you get home, you're like too tired to move your body. Your brain is tired, which makes your body feel tired too. And then you just kind of sit on the couch, or you like cook dinner, sit on the couch, and that's the rest of your day. You went from being super active, even if it wasn't like going to the gym and working out, but moving your body frequently at like frequent intervals throughout the day, to sitting all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Like, of course your body's going to change. Your
Yeah.
diet probably changed too. You probably went from, college food to like whatever your office food means. A lot of people go out for lunch every day. So like now you're eating in restaurants every day or you're eating fast food every day.
Yeah.
And there's just so many changes that the more we can just come to terms with the fact that our lifestyle is changing every few years.
Yeah.
Like not just up to 18 and then from 65 on, but like our lifestyle is changing every few years and our activity levels and our diets are changing every few years. The more we come to terms with the fact that that will inevitably create changes in our bodies, the more we can go with the flow and just accept it as it goes.
Yeah, 100%. Okay, I want to know, other than intention setting, what are some of the other things you do before a shoot?
Yeah. Another really big, really important thing in my view is just talking with people. So when they arrive to my studio, I actually include hair and makeup with all the photo shoots. And that's step one to helping people finally let go a little bit and unwind, because most women are used to taking care of others or taking care of things, making sure things are happening. And here they enter in a space where they are being taken care of. And they're being asked what they want and what they like. And so they're kind of starting to unwind and unfurl a little bit through that process. And then when we enter my studio, I do ask about the intentions. And then I also talk about like what we're doing here. This is not, I'm going to pose you and you're going to look hot and make a sexy face and get some photos. Many, many women, especially, nothing I'm saying is completely isolated to a single gender.
Mm-hmm.
But since most of my clientele is women, and I'm guessing most of your audience is women, I'm just going to say women for the ease of conversation. Just know that this, body image issues plague men and people of all genders as well. So I realized early on that it's not enough for me to assume that people know they're here for their photo shoot and it's all about them. But I specifically need to tell people, you're not here to please me. You're not here to perform for me. You're not here to do what you think I want you to do or what I'm telling you to do. You are the boss of your body. You are the one who chooses what you do and how you do it at every single step in the way. Because in our especially like over the past year, it has felt like people are telling women what they're allowed to do with their bodies. And of course, this has been part of our society for a very, very long time. It just feels acutely painful the past few months. And so I realized that it's not enough to assume people know that, but I have to state it in clear, plain words several times in several different variations of you're the boss of your body. You're the boss of you. I am here as the professional you hired to guide you and to offer you the direction and the coaching that you need to, express yourself and to have photos that you love. But at the end of the day, if anything that comes out of my mouth does not work for you, fine. You don't need to ask my permission. If a pose feels a little weird for your low back and you've been having a little low back tweakiness and it feels kind of strange, you don't have to say, can I get out of this pose? Get out of the pose. Let me know and I'll offer a different option for you. So I know like what is the relationship between, agency and mindfulness? And it is addressing the power dynamic in the room with somebody who is nearly naked or naked and somebody who's fully clothed with a camera in their hand, a big camera, there is a power dynamic and none of us benefit from me being secretive or coy about it, or not addressing it head on. I am there as the leader in the space to open up the space, to address the topics that maybe people are uncomfortable talking about, to be the icebreaker. I'm a good icebreaker. That's part of what makes me good at this job.
Yeah.
I'm a good icebreaker and I'm here telling you, you're the boss here. Like it may feel like I'm the boss here because you paid me money and I'm wearing clothes and you're not. Just so you know, you're the boss here. And that really helps alleviate a lot of the mental chatter and the mental anxiety so that by the time we get into the meditation and I start guiding them toward connecting to their breath and through that attention on the breath, connecting to the body, They feel like it's their choice.
Yeah.
They're choosing to do everything that they do in that studio. And all I'm doing is offering options.
I I think that's so powerful that you're saying at the beginning, you don't have to ask my permission. And right there, like it gives them so much power back in that moment of saying, you know what? I don't like this. And I don't even have to say it out loud. I don't have to ask for someone if I can change. I'm taking so much of my power back here. I think that is so important, especially you're doing it when they're so vulnerable. They're
Yeah.
basically naked. And
Yeah.
so I'm sure that you've heard from some of your clients come back and say like this photo shoot didn't just serve me on that day, but it gave me a whole new sense of confidence going forward in my life.
That's the whole idea. And the thought about why agency would be so important is because I really want to take the element of people pleasing out of the situation. Because when they're thinking that they're there to that I have a very specific vision in my head for what their photos are going to look like, and I am going to shape them and mold them the way I want, then they're automatically not going to be listening to the signals that their body and their heart are giving them. And they're instead going to be looking at me and thinking and moving and molding themselves to fit what they think my vision is or what they think I want. So by taking that off of the table, and I tell people, like, when I have a photo shoot, I don't schedule anything else for that day. I tell people, like, honestly, if you need to take a break, if you need to go to the bathroom, if you need to have a little piece of chocolate and sit down, if you need to just like do nothing for like 30 seconds, close your eyes and just lay on the bed and do nothing, you are more than welcome to do that. I am not going to rush you. Again, it's not about pleasing me. I'm not sitting here with a stopwatch being like, okay, this pose. Okay, next pose.
Yeah.
Okay, next pose. Yeah, let's go. Oh, hold that for like 5 more seconds so I could get all these different pictures. Like I tell people, hold it. But I'm also like, everything I tell you is an option and you're choosing what you want to do. So I really think it's important to remove that element of people pleasing from it. And that element of like trying to perform from it.
Yeah.
Because when I'm not a factor in what they choose to do, like when my thoughts or opinions or what they think I want is not a factor, then it gives them permission to go inward and decide, what does my body need right now? What feels good for me right now? And then follow that instead of following an external direction of what they think somebody else wants from their body.
And I think that is so important because the way you do one thing is the way you do everything. And when clients come to me at first, a lot of them think, I just want you to tell me what to eat and what not to eat. And I was resonating with what you were saying in a different sense of like, I am here to guide you to learn how to be an expert on your own body. I'm going to give you suggestions. I'm going to give you ideas. I'm going to give you strategies that work for the majority of people. And there's going to be some things that are really going to work for you. And there's going to be some things that just don't feel aligned and don't feel good. And we are going to talk about that. And we're going to help you settle on a way of eating that feels right for your body, for your schedule, for your needs, for your preferences. And I think that when it comes to nutrition, you are almost people pleasing. You're trying to people please other people's diets and weight loss experts and other things. And when you're able to take that power back of, oh, I can do what feels right for me. I don't have to, just because my Aunt Karen is doing keto, I don't have to do keto because that doesn't feel right for me. It's all about trusting yourself, trusting your decisions, trusting that you can pave your own path, whether that's your body image or your food or your exercise or any of your self-care needs.
Absolutely. And that's something that is the biggest challenge for most people, is learning to trust themselves, because we have been told that like somebody else knows better for us from, not to throw shade on like parents out there, but that's like, a lot of parents, they're like, we know better. And, a lot of that's true. Like, making your kid brush their teeth when they're like, I don't want to brush my teeth before bedtime. It's like, okay, you got to brush your teeth. Like I truly do know better than you for your best self's sake right now. But this, but we are raised in a society where we're always taught that somebody knows better for us, that somebody else, whether it's our parents, our teachers, our bosses, some, in like the entrepreneurial case, like some other business expert or entrepreneur expert who's, made millions, blah, blah, blah. We're trained to think they know better for us.
Yeah.
So it's hard. It absolutely is hard to transition to, no, actually, I know better for me. And to discover what that is and to, learning how to listen to your body, it is challenging, but it's so worth it.
Yeah. Oh my God. Did I ever struggle with that? When I started my business, I was following so many business mentors and experts, and I was like, they're telling me I should do this and I should do this. And I was just not being myself, and it didn't feel right. I know when I first started, I hired a business coach, and she told me, you need to advertise weight loss. You need to be a weight loss expert if you ever want to have people pay you and you ever want to be successful. And I remember doing that. For a couple of weeks or months. And I was like, I hate the way that this feels, because
it felt so horrible, right?
It felt horrible because I would have some clients who would come on the call and be like, I lost 2 pounds or 5 pounds this week. And I'd be like, I don't care. How's your relationship with food and your body? How's your mindset? How are we feeling? What's going on inside your mind? Like, I don't care what the number on the scale is saying. And there was such a big disconnect. And I remember I had to pause and trust myself and ask myself, who am I? Who am I? How do I want to show up? If people are paying me to be their coach, to be their mentor, to connect with me on such a deep level, they want to connect with who I am, not who I think that I should be. Because when they actually start working with me, if they're hiring someone who, oh, that's not who I thought I was hiring, then there's going to be that disconnect. And now I show up as, I am sarcastic. I am happy. I am bubbly. I make jokes all the time. And I try to make my clients feel light about an issue that can feel very, very deep. And I think that's what makes me good at my job. And now I trust myself. And I think that people have to take that time to tune out the external world, whether that's about body image or nutrition or whatever it is, the way that you want to raise your family, and start trusting yourself and being authentic to who you are. Because no one else is going to be that person for you.
Absolutely. And that can be challenging. And that's why I do what I do, because my own journey gave me some gateways. It gave me some paths for me, it started with, when I started getting into yoga asana, when you think of a yoga class, you're doing poses on a mat. That's one tiny little piece of the massive thing that actually is yoga, a spiritual method, a science, and a personal practice. Yoga is so much more than that, but that's most people's gateway to it. And it is incredibly valuable for me. It helped me finally connect to my body and start being able to tune into the messages of my body, because through the gateway of my breath. Because during this class, I had nothing really to think about, but what's my body doing right now? And as I breathe, my body reacts differently. And I specifically practice a style of postural yoga called forest yoga, which has a very strong emphasis on focus on the breath and paying attention to the body and a lot of other stuff. But to keep it simple, that taught me how to feel what messages my body was giving me and how to feel what actually worked for my body. From the breath, I was able to access my body. And once I was able to access my body, I was able to go deeper and start uncovering and discovering my values and my purpose, my dharma, my why, the reason why I show up in the world, what works about me, what are my strengths and what are the things that are just somebody else's strengths, but they don't have to be mine. My strengths doesn't have to be everything. So I definitely, and I think this is very related to the conversation of a confidence and self-esteem, because when we're simply trying to be somebody else, we're not going to be very good at it.
Yeah.
So probably, yes, our confidence will suffer.
Yeah.
Versus when we commit to the process of discovering who we are and living who we are truly, in the world, and this is not to excuse people who are like, I'm just mean or I'm just an asshole.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, if that's you, fine, but like nobody's going to want to be your friend because you suck, But learning what drives you, what are the core things that bring you joy and drive you and give you motivation and passion and fire in the belly. What are those things? When you can identify those things, confidence comes so much more naturally because you're no longer trying to fit in somebody else's shoes and feeling like cramps in the arches of your feet when you're walking in shoes that are 2 sizes too small for you. You're wearing your own stuff and you're wearing things like it's the same idea with clothing, right?
It's comfort. Yeah.
Comfort. And with comfort, I think comes confidence as well.
100%. What you were saying before about yoga made me think of this perfect example. So I am someone who I have scoliosis. And so I've lived with chronic back pain for years and years. And I've tried different ways to try to manage it. And for years and years, people were saying, try yoga. And then I became a health coach. And so I started meditating and journaling. And I was like, you know what? This is what that's what everyone is doing. Like everyone who does yoga loves yoga. Like and I can see, and I can see that, so I started trying it and I just couldn't get into it. Not only could I not get into it, it was hurting my back more. It wasn't helping me, but I was really hard on myself for the first couple of weeks because I was like, I should love this. I should love this because everyone else who does yoga loves it and finds so much like meaning behind it. And it's a workout too. So like, I was like, I should love this. And I've talked about this so much is like, we are constantly shoulding ourselves of what we should be doing or should be wanting. And one day I just woke up and I was like, yoga's just not for me. And that's
there you go.
Okay. I can still journal. I can still meditate. I can still be spiritual. I can still be me and not do yoga. And it sounds so silly, but like it was such a resistance for me because I wanted to be that girl who woke up and did yoga and wore her Lululemon leggings, but it's not for me. And maybe in a couple of years I'll come back to it and I'll try it and maybe I'll like it. But for right now, it's not for me. And that's okay.
Absolutely. That it's the curse of the should.
Yeah.
Curse of the should. It's taking on somebody else's life as your own. And that is not something that builds our self-esteem. No. It is not something that feeds our sense of self-worth.
Because then you get mad at yourself because you're not feeling like you're aligned with the thing that you're trying to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So exactly. We have talked for so long, but you're so great. And I want to talk to you forever. But as we're wrapping things up, I want to know. So I know that a lot of the women in my community struggle with taking pictures, with being confident. Maybe they don't even want to take pictures. And so do you have a couple of tips? Maybe it's like mindset tips or actual like physical tips, anything, maybe like 3 to 5 actionable things that they can start doing if either they want to start feeling more confident in pictures, like they don't want to dread the second that an iPhone comes out, or they want to start taking pictures. Maybe they don't take any pictures right now. Like where could they start? Maybe it's a mindset, maybe it's meditation, maybe it's connecting to your body. Where can they start?
I have 4 steps in my free confident posing guide.
Oh my God, so there you go.
I'll make sure you get the link to that and you can share it with people. And that
I'll put it in the show notes.
Okay, perfect. That guide basically covers 3. It's when I started having a bunch of friends being like, oh, Gabby's the photographer. Hey, have Gabby take this picture, when we're out in like group settings or whatever.
I need you as a friend. I need you as a friend so you can take pictures for me. I don't know how to pose.
So, okay, download the guide.
I will.
There's 3 steps that relate to how you position your body. And there's one that is around mindset and mindfulness.
Okay.
And I'm not going to describe the body positioning because honestly, people are going to hear it and be like, what? You know, you got to see it. And there's like a ton of pictures in the guide.
Okay.
So it's like just basically like 10 little like pages of pictures and stuff. So there's a lot of pictures there on how to arrange your body. But the last step, number 4, and the most important is to breathe. Because when we're breathing, And when we're paying attention to our breath, the breath is so much. So when you're, let's see, how do I want to put this? Deep breathing, diaphragmatic breathing actually activates the parasympathetic nervous system, which is the nervous system that's activated when it's called the rest and relax, kind of colloquially. So it is the relaxed nervous system. And then the sympathetic nervous system is basically the stress state, and that's where a lot of us live a lot of the time. And that's where we get really into our heads and the heart's racing, the breath is short and fast or stunted. When we take just a few moments to breathe deeply into our bellies, not being afraid to make our bellies bigger, because when we breathe into them, they get bigger, and that's natural and beautiful and human. When we do that, we are literally relaxing ourselves on a nervous system level, like on a physiological level. We are relaxing ourselves. So if you go into photo situations, number one, knowing a few things about how to pose your body really helps. And I am a huge fan of fake it till you make it. That's like how I've gotten to where I am. Like, seriously, that's all that thought rewriting, all that reframe stuff that we were talking about earlier. That's all fake it till you make it. You're just kind of like telling yourself what you want to believe. And then eventually it becomes true.
The way that I say that is more fake it till you become it. Cause I find a lot of people will say fake it till you make it, but then they make it and they're still faking it. Whereas that's like fake it until you become it and it becomes true for you.
Be it until you become it.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly like that. So, knowing the way to pose your body and stuff, taking deep breaths when the camera comes out. And you have a YouTube. Yeah. So I'll just show this and people who are listening can also kind of get a sense for it. But people who are listening are not going to see, but it is really a lot easier to smile when you breathe out. So you can be like, if I breathe in and smile, just now you saw like the tendons in my neck pop out. My shoulders went up. Breathing in and smiling. It was like, I felt like a little constricted and nervous versus
right.
Take a deep breath out, let the shoulders drop, lean in, and a smile comes so much more easily.
And I bet it looks more natural too.
It does. 100%. It looks more natural. And leaning in, this is all in the little guide, but I think it really, really comes down to connecting to your body, whatever that means for you. It doesn't have to be yoga. It could be just walking every day. It could be,
for me, it's like I said, like giving yourself hugs.
Giving yourself hugs.
I'm wearing a heat blanket right now, like exposing yourself to different textures and different temperatures and just like reconnecting to the senses that your body has, because so many people, like, they live in their heads and they don't live in their bodies.
Yeah. So find what works for you. It is a delightful experiment to discover what helps you feel tuned in and connected to your body. With what activity do you feel like you can truly take in using all your senses, and you're not just thinking about your experience, but you're actually experiencing your experience? Everything else will just come a lot more easily after you have discovered what's your method of self-connection and self-observation and just like self-love.
Yeah. Wow. You're amazing, Gabby. I could talk to you for hours. But if anyone wants to connect with you, so you are outside of Denver, correct?
Yeah, I'm right outside of Denver.
Okay. So if anyone's listening to this and they're close, then I'm sure that they can reach out to you. But if anyone just wants to connect with you, maybe they want to get some body image tips or some photography tips, where can they connect with you? And I'll obviously put all the links in the show notes, but where can they find you?
Yeah, so I'll give you the link for that confident posing guide. I have an Instagram account at Embodied Art Boudoir. Check the notes, because boudoir is one of those tricky French words that has like way too many vowels. Boudoir. So many vowels, it's really hard, easy to spell wrong. Finally, like, it took me months to like figure out how to spell it.
As a French person, I can definitely attest to that.
But actually, So Instagram a little bit, social media is not my favorite thing. So I actually show up even more fully on my email list, and on my website, I have a blog, and there is a ton of resources on my blog for body image healing, self-love practices, that kind of stuff, photography tips, that kind of stuff is on my blog at embodiedartboudoir.com. And then, with the menu on the top or the menu at the bottom, you can get to the blog.
Perfect. And I will also link that 4 steps, the guide.
I just call it the confident posing guide.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
So I'm going to link that in the show notes as well. Gabby, thank you so much. You were absolutely incredible. I did not know how this conversation would go, and I'm mind blown. You're so interesting. You're so good at what you do. So I would love to have you again on the show. Thank you so much to everyone for listening. I hope you got a lot out of it, and that you go out and you start posing confidently and showing up in pictures and breathing and smiling and just reconnecting to your inner power. Thank you so much for listening, and we will see you on the next episode. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. If you found it valuable, I would love if you would share it with someone you know that could benefit. If you're loving the show, don't forget to subscribe over on Apple Podcasts so you don't miss a single episode. I really love hearing feedback from you, so please leave a rating and review over on Apple to help us get in the ears of more people who need it the most. Finally, come hang out with me on Instagram at Sabrina Magna Health for more educational content and get up close and personal with me. Thank you so much for being here, and I'll see you on the next episode. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. If you found it valuable, I would love if you would share it with someone you know that could benefit. If you're loving the show, don't forget to subscribe over on Apple Podcasts so you don't miss a single episode. I really love hearing feedback from you, so please leave a rating and review over on Apple to help us get in the ears of more people who need it the most. Finally, come hang out with me on Instagram at Sabrina Magna Health for more educational content and get up close and personal with me. Thank you so much for being here, and I'll see you on the next episode.